live, you are live.
Good morning everyone, and welcome to your dawn safari from what is a clear moon but a very ominous grey sky coming in from the southeast. You're here in the northeast corner of magnificent South Africa, possibly the world's most beautiful country as voted for by South Africans. We're in the iconic Kruger National Park, which is 2.2 million hectares, just over 5 million acres of untrammeled wildlife wilderness wonderland. That's a lot of W's for this early in the morning. Also, off into Mozambique and north into Zimbabwe, part of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. All the place names you're going to hear over the course of the next 3 hours will be deeply confusing. I may even draw you a map, which will leave you even more confused. Now, you are on a live safari. My name is James Henry. On camera today we have Brian the Thumb Joubert. Very nice, Brian.
Thank you, James.
What is the thumb today? Just his normal tie?
Yeah, very excited as well.
Yes, excited suit and tie on Thursday morning as we close into the weekend, which of course for us is exactly the same as every other day, as it is for that little herd of wildebeest over there. On the other vehicle today, the inimitable Brent Leo Smith, his last drive before he goes on a well-deserved rest. He unfortunately has a flat tyre again. Of course, he will tell you that he has never caused a flat tyre in his life, nor has he been stuck or ever broken a car. This, of course, is piffle. He is being filmed by VM Dorenbrach, and in the final control today, Rebecca, no she isn't, Louise is talking in the ears, and I think Chelsea Bunn is on the knobs, tapping on the keys. So you are most welcome, like I say, a live safari. That means you can talk to us as we drive through this wonderful area. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarth.TV if you're on the email. This is a herd of wildebeest which we haven't seen around here for some time. I'm not entirely sure where they've been. Probably on Arathusa. They like to kind of move between here and the clearings of Arathusa, possibly up into Buffelshoek. Now this is the same species that you see migrating in those vast numbers all over East Africa. It's a different subspecies, but the same species. Now I'm going to be very quiet because Brian's friends are calling from just over the backs of those wildebeest. So I'm not sure if you can hear that or not, but what we've got there are the ground hornbills. Incredibly rare birds, endangered species. Looks like a giant black turkey with a kind of red mantle around the neck. Brian, would you like to give us your impression? That's Brian, everybody. Talking to his friends, the hornbills. And the hornbills, there were 6 of them yesterday in a flock that Brent managed to find, which I think is rather magnificent. So you can see, you saw the grey sky there, and these wildebeest now picking on the last kind of bits of grass that they can find. For the grazers and the browsers, but especially the grazers after our very poor rainy season, they're going to have a bit of a tough time as we go into the really business end of the dry season. So I'm sure, as many of you will know, this is very much a summer rainfall area when it rains. We had hardly any rain this year at all. And these kind of clouds are a bit like, as I've said in some of the South African politicians, they promise much, deliver almost nothing. I guess that's politicians the world over. But they look like they're going to rain on us, and it would be highly unlikely that we get any winter rain. But I'm saying that, of course, just because I don't want to get wet and tempting fate to prove me wrong. All right, let's sneak a little bit forward. I think it may be worth spending just a few more minutes with these wildebeest, and then we're going to head down towards the southeast, and see if we can pick up tracks of Karula, the great queen, 12-year-old female leopard, and maybe her little babies, 4 months old now, almost 5, George and Charlotte. Not their real names. The names I've given them were the guides of this area who get naming rights to find out that I'd call them George and Charlotte. I'd be a pariah, more than I am already. There they are. And knocking about with the wildebeest, a few fork-tailed drongos, which you can just hear making very quiet swizzling noises, and there are a few starlings in there as well. They have now obviously become invisible to the camera. There's one just next to, peeping out next to the left-hand side. That's one of the starlings. Hello, James Richard. Good morning to you. You want to know if buffalo and other antelope are susceptible to diseases which might affect the development of their horns. I'm sure they are. I've certainly seen one or two buffalo with mangled horns and the odd impala with a horn growing at a jaunty angle. I don't know what they are though, James. I'm not sure what they're called. And any ideas you could give me would be wonderful, but I'm really not sure what diseases would cause that. But certainly I have seen the odd buffalo, especially buffalo cows, not so often the bulls, with a horn that looks like it's not broken off, like it's sort of grown in a strange fashion. And of course we all know that once the buffalo and antelope die out here, the keratophagous or keratin-eating moths lay their eggs in the buffalo horns, and that eats away at the keratin. And then, the larvae eat away at the keratin, and eventually, it gives the buffalo and the antelope horns the appearance of dreadlocks, and then the moths hatch and they go off. And I think quite often that we see buffalo rubbing their horns and sort of scratching the tops of their heads, and I think a lot of the time that's put down as territorial behavior. I think quite a lot of the time it's actually the buffalo scratching their heads, because I think that those moths, I don't see why they wouldn't lay their eggs in the living keratin of a buffalo. So I wonder if they don't have the eggs inside the keratin already, and then they start they hatch, and perhaps buffalo get very itchy, and so they rub their horns. Right, we're heading down into this ominous greyness of the dawn, and we'll see if we can pick up some low-powered tracks. And just to keep you posted, Brent not only has a flat tire, he apparently also has no signal, so he's having a wonderful morning so far. So the road, of course, is the bush newspaper. That's the kind of cliche we like to use, and it's a good one, because it tells us what was happening during the night. You watch the road, you see what tracks there are. At this stage, some hyenas went bolting up that way sometime during the course of the morning. Some impala did the same sort of thing. Always there are civet tracks, and I always say we never see civets, and Brent saw one last night. That was really nice. A good parting gift for him. And just to keep you posted, while Brent is gone, of course you know that Sam is not here, you know that Jamie is not here, and I'm sure you're wondering to yourself, who's going to help James? Surely we don't have to stare at him for 6 hours a day on his own for the next week. And no, you'll be pleased to know you don't. Sitting behind me and next to Brian, we have the substantial figure of Byron Serrao, ex-south of Johannesburg. We don't hold that against him. That's basically where the gangsters of South Africa come from. He is not a gangster to my knowledge, and he will be joining us from this afternoon. Hello, Byron. There we go. You may have heard him say hello there. There he is. We have a sighting. Say hello, Byron.
Good morning, everybody. Look forward to seeing you all this afternoon.
Byron, of course, learnt some of his trade from me. I gave him a little bit of training at the beginning of his career, and then he forgot everything I taught him and became a very good guide. Go ahead, Brent. I'm just going to talk to Brent.
Audio sounds of probably south of Twin Downs, but in that area.
Copy, I'm heading that way. Thanks, Brent. As is the rain. So you may notice a bit of spit coming out of the sky now, which is a bit disconcerting. It's starting to rain down here a bit. So what we're going to do is head down to the south. He says he can hear some lions. And we're going to just move along towards the center of the reserve and see if we can't pick up tracks of the lions. Maybe we can hear them calling, maybe they'll cross over, and maybe the great queen and her babies will be around. Wouldn't that be nice, Brian? Yeah, splendid. I think there might be a nest in that dead tree for those green wood hoopus. There's some interesting green wood hoopus. Taryn, you're in Tanzania, and you want to know if there are any animals here that are only found in South Africa and nowhere else in Africa. In other words, endemic animals. Taryn, in terms of animals, many. Remember, animals, of course, constitute everything from every arthropod and every insect and every arachnid to the big mammals that we see. In terms of mammals, yes, I suppose you might consider the black wildebeest. I suppose he would be a South African endemic or Southern African endemic. Two of the zebras, the Hartmann's mountain zebra and the Cape mountain zebra, they're endemic to southern Africa, so they will occur in Namibia, not Botswana, but Namibia and the Cape of South Africa. So those would be two endemics from this particular area. Plenty of birds, obviously, that you wouldn't find up in East Africa, but plenty in East Africa that you would find here. And that's an example there that we just saw, the green wood hoopoo. And the green wood hoopoo used to be called the red-billed wood hoopoo. You've always called it the green wood hoopoo, and it's one of the reasons that all the names have changed here, and they changed more than 10 years ago. And we still struggle to get used to it. But because the same bird often occurs in East Africa, the names have now been kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Searching my memory banks for. The names have been consistentified, made consistent. So, lots of animals that occur here. And then I suppose the springbok would also be another one endemic to southern Africa, which I don't think you get up there. It's our only gazelle species down here. You've got lots of different gazelle species up in East Africa. So those would be 3 or 4. It is getting a little bit nasty weather-wise, isn't it, Brian?
It is.
We might have to go home for breakfast early. Brent, just to keep you posted, there is down. Well, not him personally. He's up, but Wendy is down. Brian, I didn't bring my rain jacket because it's winter and it never rains here in winter. No. How many jackets today?
Just 3.
Just the 3. Well, you might be able to stave off the rain with those 3 jackets. Anyway, the animals, as you can see, are hiding from us, because they don't enjoy this weather. Hello Zoe, you say, have I ever noticed that the skulls of ruminants don't have upper incisors? And apparently Aristotle made that discovery. Zoe, I suspect quite strongly that Ugg the caveman, more than 200,000 years ago, probably realized that when he threw his first stone at a ruminant, knocked it dead and then devoured it. Yes, you're absolutely correct though, that ruminants do not have upper incisors. They've got a pad, they've got a sort of hard gummy pad. The incisor is only really a useful adaptation if you are cutting things with your teeth, and most ruminants you find pull the grass out, and buffalo are a great example, they use their tongues too. But goats and sheep, if you watch them eat, they bite down onto they sort of clamp the grass and then tear it. So they don't often sort of cut it. And that, I suppose, saves them a bit of energy. Thank you for that, Zoe. Noticeable exception, of course, well, non-ruminant, but definitely a herbivore, would be a horse or a zebra. They've definitely got both upper and lower incisors, and if you've ever been bitten by a horse, you'll know all about it. It's an extremely unpleasant experience. Brian, why haven't you asked me, James, have you ever been bitten by a horse?
Have you ever been bitten by a horse?
I have been bitten by a horse, yes,
yeah.
Brian. It was very, very sore.
Oh, no.
Yes. I was a small boy. In fact, I've been bitten a few times. This is very unseasonable weather. It's also inspiring the animals to take fright and hide. Justin, you want to know what the terminal velocity of a raindrop is? Justin, as far as I'm aware, the term, and I may be wrong here, I'm stretching myself back to my physics days. Terminal velocity is in the absence of friction, for example, so in a vacuum, terminal velocity I think is around 220 kilometers an hour. And that in miles is about 140 miles per hour. So were a raindrop to fall out of the sky in the absence of friction, in other words, in the absence of the air, it would fall at about 240 kilometers an hour. Now, were there to be air in the way, I imagine there'd be quite a lot of friction, quite a lot of wind. So let's say the terminal velocity would be roughly 2/3 of that. And so I'm going to put it at 240 divided by 3 is 80. I'm going to put it at 160 kilometers an hour, which is 100 miles an hour. You can check that up for me, though. What do you think, Brian?
Not bad.
You think that could be correct?
Potentially, maybe.
Potentially, maybe. Oh, Google says 44 miles an hour for a hailstone, so probably about the same for a raindrop, depending on the wind. So remember, it doesn't matter how heavy you are, if you're falling in a vacuum, you're going to fall at the same speed, regardless of whether you're heavy, light, or shaped like an arrow or shaped like a parachute. Right, we're on the southern boundary, everyone. To the right-hand side of the road, a property called Little Gari. To the front of us, a minibus van. How very exciting to see. And to the left of us, Djuma. Those are guests, everybody, probably from Cheetah or Cheetah Plains on the early flight out of Hoedspruit, or possibly from Nelspruit, so they're driving out early, poor people. No morning safari for them. Oh well. We're going to drive very slowly along this road, just see if we can't pick up any tracks of leopard or lion. I'm just going to fix my earpiece, because if it doesn't rectify itself, I'm going to lose my temper with it, and that's going to be very unpleasant for everybody. Isn't it, Brian? Brian also has a buff on his head.
Yes, I do.
Yes? Two buffs. Very nice. Now, Luisi, in the final control, I'm on a handheld radio, so your comms are getting a little bit fuzzy, but they should be okay. Brent is still down, everybody. He's probably having his 4th cup of coffee, telling a story, possibly about the man-eating lions of Tsavo. When he hears I've said that, I'm going to be in very big trouble. Now, Brent said he thought he heard some lions calling from here when he was fixing his tire and breaking Wendy's signal. So let's just turn off here and have a listen. The only thing I can hear from here is the delightful sound of the white-browed scrub robin going. I do not hear the throaty roar of a lion.
Good morning, officer.
Oh, I do also hear Abel from Biffle's Hook on the radio.
Wipe the lens.
Need to?
Wipe the lens.
Wipe the lens. You do what you have to do, Brian. The people will understand. I'm afraid I didn't get that.
Louise said I must wipe the lens as soon as I said I must wipe the lens.
I see. Okay, no sound of lions here. We're just going to give Brian a brief opportunity to quickly wipe the lens so that you will not feel like you have a migrainous headache coming on. You don't, it's just a bit of precipitation on the lens. The francolins are calling. You can hear them in the drainage line, their calls echoing through the trees.
That's a rat.
Yes, that should be okay, Brian.
Should be alright.
Right, on we go. Just keep an eye out on the road for any interesting tracks. Oh, I see a car up ahead that has looked like it had stopped, but it hasn't. I suspect strongly they're looking for what we're looking for. There are reports of the Queen crossing north into Djuma here yesterday evening. Let's wait for these fellows to go past, and we'll get an update from them with any luck. They may just drive past me. Morning, how's it going? Good? Right, yes, they just drove past us. Oh well. Clearly there's no update. That's from Nkoro, everyone. Now this is the great valley of the Mulwati drainage line. Raging torrent that it is. And this is where Karula has been centering a lot of her activities while she's had her little babies. Yeah, what I think we'll do is we'll head north up what we call Leadwood Road here and see if she doesn't pop out somewhere there. Maybe she's killed some hapless antelope and draped it across a tree for us to look at. Apparently she came north across here last night. I find that a little odd, I have to tell you, because it's a long way from where she was supposedly seen only half an hour before. So I'm not really sure what's going on that front. Has been a little bit of rain, quite a lot of wind during the night, so it's going to be difficult to pick the tracks up. Now this is the road called Leadwood, so named I think because of this very tree here on our right hand side. And this tree has got in it at various stages a squirrel's nest and also the nest of a Burchell starling, none of which have decided to grace us with their presence this morning. But on the ground, Brian, we have two ring-necked doves, one of them looking very bedraggled. Now that is an iconic bird of the African wilderness. It makes the most lovely sound. And although the humble dove looks a peaceful sort of, I don't know, less than impressive bird, they are unbelievably fast. So one of the major predators, especially in desert areas, is falcons. And falcons, you know, we were talking about terminal velocity, they dive at well over 200 kilometers an hour. And these doves somehow manage to get out of the way, take off and fly off at a speed that they avoid those falcons. Let us take a moment to appreciate the humble ring-necked dove.
James.
Go ahead. Brent is hailing me on the radio.
What was your route?
I did Weaver's Nest, Gari Main. I'm now in Leadwood.
I copy. I'm in it for the gate.
Now that preening activity there, you can see the one behind is fastidiously putting his beak behind, or his or her beak behind the wing. There is a gland, an oil gland. There are a few oil glands around the bird's body, and one of them is behind the wing there. And they use that oil gland, of course, for this preening, endless preening that must take place. Now remember, the feathers of a bird are not like your hair. They're not, once they're fully grown, the blood and nerve supply gets cut off, which means they're dead, which means that they cannot kind of self-heal, if you like. So if they get misshapen, the bird really has to be very fastidious about keeping the barbs in line. Otherwise, of course, as you know, with aeroplane maintenance, if you neglect aeroplane maintenance, you find your aeroplane plummeting out of the sky, and that doesn't end well. Same with a dove and any bird. Right, as this dove wanders around the place picking up the odd piece of seed, and if it's very lucky an insect, Brent Smith has managed to fix his car. Let's go and find out what he's going to be doing.
Welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Of course, as James has just introduced, I am Brent, and on camera with me today is VM. And I cannot take any credit for fixing the car. I sort of dawdle about. It was the technical magnificence of Connor Teagues and Alexander Voss who has fixed the car. But now James is checking down in the south. I'm going to check up to the north. Oh, hello, Sleepy. Oh dear, what was that noise, VM?
The back door.
Oh, the back door was not closed. Oh, someone's calling me. Morning, Abel. And we got some buffalo bulls here. Copy, thanks. Look at this. Now, that buffalo is slightly awake. The one to the right of us, oh no, now he lifts his head. It was lying flat like a cat. This one had his head down on the ground. So this is the old boys club, the gentlemen's club. And they've had a bit of a tough time of it. Lions chasing them. Now, they're still in pretty good nick at the moment. Now, they're not going to move too far away from this area. The water's close by. They've got Gallagher and Vuyatela Pan. So this is a good spot for them. And there's enough grazing around for them to keep going at the moment. But of course, as we move deeper into the dry season, it's going to become a bit more of a problem. So while we leave these old boys to continue chewing the cud, ruminate away, we're going to go look for the animal that they like least, which is lions. Now I'm hoping that those Nkahuma girls are going to be somewhere around the north. I'm also going to check past the last ping of Mr. Sindile, see if he's crossed back into Djuma. Now, wasn't it fantastic? We had such a wonderful civet sighting on the Sunset Safari last night, and I'm hoping that we're going to have some fantastic big cats today. They seem to come out on my last drive before I head on leave, so hopefully today will be no different. The last time I went on leave on the Sunrise Safari before I departed, we had Karula and her cubs. Oh, VM needs to jump off the vehicle. I just want to move a little bit further from the buffalo. Here we go. We're having some door issues. So the back door that protects all our equipment. There we go. You're going to hear a bang shortly, I think. There we go. A bit of no. We might have to cable tie it. You can hear VM. Now, of course, a lot of this stuff is just due to the amount of dust we have. Dust gets into the locking mechanisms and works its way through in the grease, and that's not working too well. We're done? No?
It was a success.
It was a success. VM has had success, so we'll continue on. Now, it looks like we've come to the end of that cold front, although there was a bit of rain around. Hi, Ruth. Lovely to have you on the drive, Ruth. And Ruth is actually asking about something I'm very, very keen on. So, Ruth says, besides pottery, what other historical artifacts are found in South Africa? Well, Ruth, some of the oldest evidence of our ancestors. So there's a bit of a debate that's been going on for quite a while between East Africa and Southern Africa, to where the original origin of man is. So I think at the moment the oldest hominin fossils are from East Africa, but the South African paleoanthropologists are quite sure that they're going to find older here. Now, of course, very recently there's been some incredible discoveries made just outside Johannesburg by Professor Lee Berger's team, and actually Professor Lee Berger was named National Geographic Explorer of the Year this year. And we'll chat a little bit more about those hominin fossils and that, because James has got an animal with a heartbeat.
That, everybody, is a sort of a blurry view of a bush, behind which a duiker just ran away, unfortunately. They're not very brave, I must say. But there are also quite a few birds singing around here. One of which is the crested francolin, common bird, common morning bird, one of the very first in the morning to start calling. And there are starlings and there are magpie shrikes. So let's see if we can get some of the magpie shrikes. They're all sitting down over there. And there's one here too. And you can see some of them there. That one that's on the branch there has got a short tail. And that's because it's a youngster. It hasn't quite got its full length tail yet. And its call is very much that of an immature bird. There's the sound of the golden-tailed woodpecker. You can hear some Cape glossy starlings flying past going, Cape glossy starling? Remember that, Brian? At least Byron. And then there's a Burchell starling sitting on the ground. There we are. Can you hear that swizzling? That's a Cape glossy starling, which is distinct from the Burchells in that it is smaller and has a red or orange eye. Not red, orange. You can even hear that golden-tailed woodpecker smashing his beak into the dead marula tree. Let's go a little bit forward and see if we can see him. They're not very common over here, those fellows. Many of you will not have him on your bird lists yet. He's in this tree here, Brian, this kind of leafless marula. Oh, there's a waterbuck up ahead. It's all happening here, Brian. No, I can't see the woodpecker. Let's go a little bit forward, have a look at the waterbuck. There it is, Brian, very daintily picking her way through the bushes. And again, you can see how I think most of the animals here are adapted colour-wise for this time of year. Here comes another one. It's a great teeming herd migrating across the road, Brian. Majestic. Oh, and another. Good grief, there are three of them. But can you see how beautifully camouflaged they are, I think, for this time of the year, especially as they walk past the branches of that tree? Much less so when everything's green. But of course, when everything's green, they can hide behind the bushes. They can get into the thick stuff. That's marvellous. There you can hear that woodpecker again. But it's flying away from us. The rain seems to have abated, everybody. The wind has dropped. It might turn into quite a nice day. Not sure what the weather prediction is. It was 14 degrees apparently when we left camp. That's 54 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure I believe those weather reports, though. We've had some ridiculous ones this year. This is why when people tell me there's a 70% chance that there'll be flooding this year, I say to them, you may as well be betting on a roulette wheel. If we cannot even successfully tell us what the temperature is going to be in one area at one time or tomorrow, how on earth can we predict regional weather over the course of months? Right, let's go back to Brent. He's found those two silver-backed canids.
Definitely one of my favourite little critters out here in the African bush, the side-striped jackal. And this is the pair that's been, or sort of set up shop along the seep line from Impala Plains all the way through to Sydney's Waterhole. Now, one of the reasons side-striped jackal in particular are so fond of this area is the amount of guarri bushes. And some of them are still in fruit, very late fruiting this year, so they take advantage of that. So they are very much omnivores, and in certain parts of Africa, even 60% of their diet is made up of fruit rather than meat. Look at that. I had a busy night foraging. Now it's time to call into a warm little ball. Sorry, I thought I heard something in the distance, but I think it's a car. Oh, look at that. Now you can see how well their camouflage works. And I mean, they're very vigilant little animals. But when they keep still and curled in a ball like that, very difficult to see. Now, I'm just going to move forward a little bit. And let's see, I think there might be some... it's all finished now. And literally, in a normal year, the whole floor around these bushes will be littered with little fruits. But I've seen these jackal eating up, and the fruits are tiny. I mean, they're just a little speck. But they eat them a lot. And when you look at side-striped jackal's dung, you find a lot of fruit in it. In this area, mostly guarri fruit, and of course, fruit of the African ebony or jackalberry. So I'm going to try and get a little bit closer to the jackals. There we go. Hello, little one. Hello, James. James would like to know, if this pair of jackal decide to stick around, do they have a specific denning season or breeding season? No, like most of the carnivores, James, they'll have babies throughout the year. And it is very likely we might see some jackal pups in the coming months. Now, they generally prefer to den in a little hole in the ground, sometimes in termite mines, normally something a bit smaller and with not as much competition. They can have up to 5 pups at a time. It's normally around 3 or 4, though. And those little guys will stay with adults till just under a year old before they move on to find their own territories. And they'll defend their territory quite vigorously from other jackals. Now, one of the nice thing about having the jackals around on a more permanent basis is we've got another alarm system. So they are very, very vocal when they spot a predator. Side-striped jackals are quite silent. They don't call a lot unless they spot a predator, and they meow, meow, meow when they see a lion or a leopard. So it's always a very good one to listen for in the bush. And they're very, very accurate. They don't alarm at nothing. If they start alarm calling, there's something there. Now, strangely enough, the strangest jackal alarm call I've ever heard. I was convinced there was a leopard around, but it wasn't. There was actually a python inside the den eating a pair of jackal's pups, and we heard them alarm calling. But now, from a tiny canid to the second largest primate we have at Djuma with James.
There's a monkey, everybody. It's silhouetted a bit in the eastern sun, but I can't see any others, which I think is quite odd. because they do occur in troops, of course. Maybe the rest of the troop is foraging on the ground below, and this is the sentinel sent out to look what's going on. I was rather hoping it would start shouting because it had seen a predator, but it hasn't started shouting. It's just sitting on a really thorny branch. I'm oft-times very glad that I'm not a monkey when I see the kinds of trees they have to sit in. And it always makes me amazed when they jump around in a tree like that and manage not to hurt themselves. I don't know if they're just very brave or if their skin is just very tough. But he looks very comfortable up there. Let's move a little bit closer around the corner. Now we only get 2 monkey species here. The Samango and this one, the vervet, not velvet, vervet monkey. It's a slightly better view of him. And baboon, when Brent said second largest primate, he was referring to the baboon as the largest. I suppose you could include us there somewhere. And there are actually many, many different kinds of monkeys in Africa, and I'm always surprised that we only get 2 of them out here. He looks very relaxed there, doesn't he, Brian? Not a care in the world. No.
Looks a little bit glum.
He does look a bit glum, but I suppose that's the weather. Not used to it, you know. So I'll just give you an idea of how many primates there are in Africa. If you look here, there's the game drive radio. Let me just try and turn that down. Look at this. So here is a field guide of mammals. It's interestingly got the humans and apes on the same thing. It doesn't actually have a human. But there they are. The gorillas, the chimpanzees. Look at all of these monkeys, none of which we find here. They're all found normally sort of around the forested areas of the Congo Basin in Central Africa. Lots and lots and lots and lots. All of those, that whole section is just monkeys and primates found around Africa, which I think is fantastic. I just wish we had a few more of them here. That's not to cast any aspersions on you, my friend. Let's leave him there to his rather glum depression. He can contemplate life on his own. And let's move on. Now, Scout, you make the very good point, as I said. You said you thought that monkeys hung around in troops. They do, almost all the time. So why that one's alone, I don't know. Like I'm saying, his troop could be foraging on the ground, and he could just be there as the sentinel, sort of looking around as a security detail. Could be that he's a young male and then he was thrown out of the troop by bigger males. That's possible. And we'll just give you a view now out over the west, to the west there, where you can see the sort of sky hanging low over the golden green of the tops of the trees. Is that not very pretty indeed, Brian? While we do that, let's go across to Brent and find out where he's going from his jackals.
We're on the northern boundary and we're heading east. Now I've just got a report that there's a male lion and 3 females inside Buffalo's Hook to the north of us. So I'm not sure which lions they are. I'll wait till someone gives us another update. But if it is the Nkuhumas, that means there's 2 lionesses missing. We know the one is denning in Torchwood. So we are convinced that that other female is denning somewhere in this area. It could be on Djuma, it could be on Buffalo's Hook, but there's a lot of little river systems here that would make ideal den sites for that lioness. So if we have a look to the left here, you can see now we're up on the crest. So as we go down, you'll see how the bush changes as we head towards the bottom of the, there we go, you can see there's one of the little river systems. And you'll notice how the bush gets much, much thicker there. And also they've got little ravines and little caves around those river systems that make ideal den sites for both lion and leopard. So let's have a look carefully for tracks around here. At the moment, all I see is an impala. There we go. Nice little herd of impala boys. Hey guys. Careful, there's a lion around here somewhere, we think. Now, not only is it a good area for lion and leopard to den when they've got babies, but during the drought, as you head down towards these little rivers, there's the last little bit of greenery left. And we'll show you now, there's even some green grass. So, of course, there's the water table all flows down towards these little rivers. So, have a look here. You can see there's still some greenery around. And it's going to attract a lot of the herbivores as well. Okay, let's keep heading east. Now, Ruth was asking about South African artifacts, and we were chatting about Professor Lee Berger, who's just won the Nat.Geo Explorer of the Year. For his team discovered possibly the first signs of a communal burial and a new species of hominin that's been named Homo naledi. And naledi actually means star. And very, very interesting stuff happening in that sphere. But literally, Southern Africa is littered with artifacts. And one of my hobbies is to look for these things. So those pottery pieces James had in the tent, actually I found some of them and my dad found the rest. Where we live, about 70 kilometers to the northwest of here. Hello, hello. Now, I'm pretty sure this is young Cinderlai. These tracks, this is where he's been hanging about, and we've been checking the boundary here. There we go, and these look like nice fresh tracks during the little bit of drizzle we had earlier this morning. So hopefully he's very close by. They've been rained on a little bit, but it was only raining for a short while this morning, very, very early. So we just check very carefully where these tracks go. So while I'm watching these tracks, where did he go now? Did he go that side, man?
No, I think he went to the right.
Let's just go back again a bit. So there we go. There's his footprint there. Someone has driven over them earlier this morning. He's coming here. I think he's just been driven over. We're going to check a bit further. So, as I was saying about all the artifacts we get, and stone tools, hand axes, late Stone Age cutting tools, there's literally hundreds of things. Now, generally when you're looking for stone tools and that, it's better to look closer to the major rivers. He's still here. Now, also wherever there's a bit of erosion, and so at the base of erosion section, because a lot of that stuff might be washed down. Let's just check carefully. Is that him or a hyena? That's him walking straight down the middle of the road. He's actually walking right there at the moment. Now, he does enjoy a good termite mound, so keeping an eye on all the termite mounds around us. Viem's got them on his side. As I said, these tracks are really nice and fresh, so he could be right here. You still got tracks for him?
Negative.
Okay, I don't have tracks this side as well. Let's have a look in the middle. I might just have to go back there. I'm just going to check a little bit further forward. Ideally, but we want these tracks to suddenly come out, but on top of the rain. That means we're mere minutes behind him. What's that in the middle there, VM? I think those are his tracks again. No, those are hyena tracks. What's this there? Those are all hyena tracks, hyena tracks. Hyena tracks. Let's just check a little bit further down, then I'm going to go back to the last tracks. Marsha's wondering if I think Sindile recognizes his home area. To a degree, I would say so, Marsha. But also, at that age, he is sort of, as much as he wants to hang around, I think that last encounter with his mother will show him that he's not really welcome anymore. And it is natural for male leopards of that age to move away from home. So where he has been hanging out currently is outside of his mom's natal range. He's in Karula's territory at the moment. Okay, so VM and I are going to go back to where we had the last tracks, and while we do that and try to figure out which way young Sindile went, let's see what James is up to.
James is approaching Buffelshoek Dam, hoping that something will be thirsty after the cold night. Of course, this might be a spurious hope, given that it's not very hot and hasn't been very dry. But we might be lucky. And maybe Sindile will just pop out of the dam. It'd be very nice. Then I think we might head towards the hyena den, see what's going on there. No further tracks of lions, leopards, any other kind of predator, so we'll just keep our eyes to the ground and see what turns up at the dam. Some elephant tracks we had, and they moved off towards the west, sorry. I cannot get that right. Every single time I say west or east, I mean the opposite and have to correct myself. One day I'll get it correct, probably not. Anyway, let's pop down to the dam quickly and see what's there. Very autumnal, very wintry smell now we're getting. A little bit of moisture on all of the dry leaf litter that you can see around here. It's a really nice smell. It's a sort of a bush potpourri, if you like. Slightly scented, bit of dust, bit of petrichor. That very nice scent of, I think it's probably the tannins in the leaf slowly kind of subliming or going up into the air, evaporating. Right, we are now approaching the water.
Next coming.
So there are some lions on Buffelshoek, as I think Brent probably told you. Well, we don't know where the Nkuhumas are at this stage. We think that's the Torchwood Pride that's up on Buffelshoek. So the Nkuhumas could well be around here. Their tracks have not come out again after we saw them going into this block to the west of Buffelshoek Dam. Right, and there's a hornbill. Just given the lack of huge predators, give credit to the humble yellow-billed hornbill. Eating termites, probably, or ants. Can't see on the ground there. It always amazes me how accurate they are with that bill, which does have feeling in it. And if you ever, I know this sounds ridiculous, but if you were to tie something that length to the front of your face and then try and accurately place the point of it onto something the size of a termite or an ant, I promise you, you wouldn't be able to do it. I think the coordination involved is quite stunning. Definitely found some colony of moving insects. I'd love to get out and look, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let him carry on eating. If he flies off, we'll have a look. Marianne, a nice question from you about starlings, and you say, are there any starling species in this area that are considered a nuisance as they are in various parts of the United States? Well, I think that the starling that you find irritating there in the US is in fact a European starling, so it's exotic. I've seen them in New York. Yes, definitely an ant nest there. That's wonderful to see. And Marianne, we get them in South Africa, not particularly, not in this area. They have become a nuisance in some areas. And there are one or two wild starling species that are a bit of a pain in human settlement areas around, say, the Kruger Park. But that's just because they've got used to being fed by people. But they're certainly not a major nuisance, a major pest. A major pest bird in South Africa is something called an Indian myna, which is quite closely related to the starlings. And we've seen some at Arathusa Dam, actually. That's the only time I've seen them in the Sabi sand, but they do come in every so often. And the Indian myna is a real menace, especially in urban areas. It is unsurprisingly, given its name, from India, where it is kept in check by natural predators. Right, here we are at the water's edge. Oh, look at that, Brian. We've got hippopotamus action. Now, let's have a look at these hippos, and then I will consider Dina's question. Dina, you say, does the length of the bird's tail affect its balance, or does it sort of counterbalance the beak? No, I don't think so. I think that tail is purely for... I'm just trying to think about that. You know, it's so light. I think it's probably almost negligible weight. It's largely used for flying. Now, this is not ideal hippo habitat. You can see the water is starting to dry out here. And these are probably two young hippos. There's certainly one young one. Maybe a cow. But possibly two young males who've been tossed out of a bigger pod in some more permanent water. Let's have a look there. It's quite a peaceful little scene. But those hippos are really in the mud there. But they're very... one of them is blowing bubbles. Can you see that, Brian? The one closest to us is blowing bubbles out the right-hand side of his mouth. Obviously he stopped, as I said it. Very peaceful little scene. And above us the red-billed buffalo weavers continue to build their little nests or live in them. But otherwise a fairly predator-free zone. Right, so you can see the dam has been expanded as well, and that is in waiting for this deluge that might be coming this year. So the dam will, A, not be sort of moved away, and water will be stored. No alarm calling birds, no alarm calling anything here, so I think let's press on and see what we can find. We're going to go down towards the middle of the reserve now and see if we can head to the hyena den. Perhaps they are being a little bit more confiding than the leopards and lions so far. So let's go across to Brent and get an update on his tracking of Sindile. It'd be marvellous to see him again.
Unfortunately, not the best news about young Sindile. He went to the north. That doesn't mean he's not going to zigzag back to the south, so we're going to keep checking down the boundary. Sorry, I should be on the radio. Between Garikatlan and Timbuti Dam. Oh, hello. Well, good thing I didn't wonder about too much. I actually walked into some buffalo, and now just on the other side of the crest, inside Buffalo's Hook, some elephant, but quite deep in the thicket there. Hello, madam. No. She's keeping very still. I think she's probably just listening to us. But the rest of the herd sound like they're quite deep inside Buffalo's Hook, so we're going to leave them be. Do elephants ever lie down when they sleep? And they do sometimes, Katie. It's normally the young ones. The adults find it, and they will, if the adults lie down, they don't normally lie against something, a termite mound, a tree. And these elephants have come from here and they've crossed the road going north. Let's have a look. Shambiv Love inside Buffalo's Hook on the crest between Timbuti Dam and Garikatlan. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure that young Sindile, and if you're not sure who Sindile is a young male leopard whose tracks we were following there, but his tracks went north, hasn't sort of zigzagged back to the south. Now this is a good spot. He might have used the roads here to cross. Now a lot of the roads are built on old animal paths. That's why we find tracks on them so regularly. Well, not this one. This is the boundary between two properties. That's why it's so straight. So here we go. This is where we want to check very carefully. Interesting. Let's have a quick look on that softer soil there. It's a very hard soil, so it's quite difficult to see the tracks there, but it looked like it was worth another investigation on the soft soil. Now, there are leopard tracks, but they look way too big to be his. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to show them to you in this light. They're quite difficult and quite hard ground. Okay, now they're heading straight. Let's see if he comes onto the road. Oh, now to confuse matters, there's lion tracks as well. Those look a bit old. Oh, maybe not. It could be one of those lionesses that we think might have a dinner.
Wendy needs a good beating as far as I'm concerned, a thorough beating, and if that doesn't work we'll probably give Connor a thorough beating and see if that doesn't fix the signal problem on Wendy. She certainly has been a recalcitrant old bag over the last little while. Very poor signal indeed. We'll try and sort it out. I do think that the weather makes a huge difference. I'm sure when the pressure changes come, that signal is affected. I have found no tracks of any large predatory animals. We are now in the valley of the Great Mulwati. Buffalo tracks, everyone. Do you think we'll see a buffalo, Brian?
Maybe.
That would be something.
Will be something.
We did see a hippo. Oh, and there's a crombeck flying in there. Oh, some chagras. It's all happening here, everybody. There's a bird party. None of which are visible, of course. You see one in there, Brian? Are you? Oh, yes. That's a chagra, everyone. It looks like the black-crowned chagra. Beautiful call it has. In fact, it is the brown-crowned chagra. That's really cool. Very nice. You may also have heard the cheerful and peaceful call of the chin-spot batis going. And like I've said to you before, anyone who says to you that that sounds like three blind mice is tone deaf. Not so, Brian? You're not tone deaf, of course? No. Some are. Jim Butler, you want to know if we get the southern ground hornbill in our area? Yes, we absolutely do, Jim Butler. We had southern ground hornbills calling this morning. Brent saw 6 of them yesterday, which is an unusually large flock. But we absolutely get them here. They were making their call this morning, Brian. Yes, hornbill, please. Mournful, mournful call that they have, Jim Butler. Yes, we definitely get the southern ground hornbill here. Highly endangered. Much research going into trying to save them. We think that one of the reasons they're so endangered, well, one of the theories is, and I'm beginning to give less and less credence to it, is that the lack of large trees is means that there are just simply not enough nesting sites. So that it's a huge turkey-like bird which lives in a tree hole, a cavity in a tree. And one of the theories was that because there's so many elephants now in the Kruger Park, well, the elephants are pushing over all the trees, and so there's simply not large enough trees left for them to be in. And I don't really subscribe to that. I think they've lived in the presence of elephants for many, many millennia. That is not a southern ground hornbill, that is a kudu. And it is just chewing 1 or 2 leaves off a very mangled combretum or bush willow bush. There are 2 kudu here, as I can see. There are probably a few more of them knocking about. They're most elegant. Now Joe, you're in Australia, and you want to know if we get something called a hartebeest out here. We do not get the hartebeest at Djuma. It can be found, the red hartebeest can be found in the Kruger Park. It's not common, but it can be found here. There they are. That is what a hartebeest looks like. These are all different subspecies of the hartebeest. And the one that you find out here is, it's interesting, I didn't realize there were so many of them. It is this one here. that fellow there. I'm not convinced of these drawings, Brian. They look a little bit like I did them.
Almost as good as your maps.
Almost as good as my maps, yes. Anyway, that's the hartebeest. It is supposed to be found in the Kruger Park, but like the Sesame and like the sable and the roan and the eland, they've all been adversely affected by the provision of artificial water. And I think you'll find, we're going back to the ground hornbills, Jim, that the provision of artificial water has concentrated elephants in certain areas, which may well have affected the larger trees and therefore inadvertently affected the ground hornbills. And this is a classic example. I mean, I'm not saying that that is the case, but it's certainly possible. And it's a classic example of a human intervention, making an intervention, thinking, not understanding all of the variables, thinking that something is going to help the animals, and having all sorts of unintended, indirect consequences. Jim, another one from you. You're saying, why are some antelope species more calm than others? Jim, I'm not sure that they are. I suppose the really little ones, the steenbok and the duiker, are much less calm, simply because I guess they're that much more vulnerable as being so small. Okay, here's a sort of biological answer. I think that a steenbok and a duiker, once it knows it's been spotted, because its defense is staying hidden, it's going to run. Whereas an impala has a very obvious flight or fight distance, or flight distance. You know, and if you go within that distance, it's going to run away. But it knows that you've seen it, and it knows that the predators can see it, and so if you're within that flight distance, it's going to run. If you're outside of the flight distance, it won't. So their defense is vigilance and seeing predators around them, and then maintaining the flight distance, whereas the defense for the smaller antelope, like the duiker and the steenbok, is to hide, and once they think they've been seen, well, they go. So that would be my answer, Jim. Right, let's go and get an update from Brent, who seems to have found a lot of tracks around the place.
Where that lioness has gone off the road. We found where that lioness has gone off the road, and she's gone into this river system here between Hyena Road and Buffels Hook Dam. There's a strong possibility she's got cubs around here somewhere, but I'm not going to go walk right in there just yet. Just want to have a quick look down Hyena Road, see if she possibly pops out down on Central. The one problem with this area, which is great for her in terms of her den site, it's nearly inaccessible by vehicle. And quite often the big cat dens are in those inaccessible spots because there's no reason for a hyena or whatnot to go looking around there. Just going very, very carefully. Just want to see that little tawny blur of movement. Come on, kitty cats. Very thankful the wind's not howling today. Don't mind it being a little bit chilly and overcast, but oof, that wind, it's a killer. Now, I think she's there where those big trees are down there. There's a big termite mound that's got some caves on it. I've walked in this area quite a bit. So there, on that section of trees down there, that's where I think she is. Or it's a very likely spot for her to put a den. There's a little gorge there. It must be 20 foot deep. Remember, we are on a live African safari, and if you want to ask me any questions, feel free to do so. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or email questions@wildearth.tv. So I think we've given the north a fair bash this sunrise safari. I'm going to start heading a bit south. There's a Well, it seems like the gremlins live on this road this morning. Apologies for that. So while we move out of the gremlin zone, let's go see what James is up to.
I think at the moment Brent lives in the gremlin zone, everybody. I'm not sure why Wendy's being so nasty. I've just seen Connor. He was driving around now. I beat him severely with a sharp stick. So we'll see if Wendy isn't better by this afternoon. Now, we are very gently moving along this road on our way to the hyena den, which is not far from here. This is Mvubu Road. Now, as I was, we were talking about it just now. Just now, of course, let me just explain that term, which I use quite often. Just now is a South African term that to the rest of the world is utterly nonsensical, but it means a little while back. Or it actually means a little while back, or it means just now, right now. Soonish, just now. I'll do it just now. That means I'll get to it when I can. Anyway, well, I was using it in the past tense there. Just now, we were talking about the different languages that people use in this area, and this road is called Mvubu Road, and an Mvubu is a Zulu word for hippopotamus. There are no Zulus in this area. There have never been any Zulus in this area, and so the use of the term Mvubu in this area is strange. Likewise, when one listens to the radio, there's this game drive speak that people have, and it's developed a kind of life of its own. It's turned into this odd mixture of languages between Shangaan and Zulu, English and Afrikaans, and when I listen to it, I'm a bit of a language snob, I suppose. My insides turn to liquefied mulch. It's like that chalkboard feeling, you know, when you scrape your nails down a chalkboard. That's how I feel when I hear some of the language spoken on the radios here. So I'll give you an example. If you find a pride of lions eating a buffalo, you don't say, I found a pride of lions eating a herd of buffalo, eating a buffalo. You say, I found a shlambi of Ngala poozering the bumba. Now, if I was to translate that directly into English, it would mean, I found a herd of lions drinking a kill. No, sorry. Stations, I found a herd of lions drinking kill. Not a or the, drinking kill, in the verb to kill. And there are three different languages put in there. Three, to different languages put in there. Shlambi, which is a very bad sort of pronunciation of the word Nhlambe, which means herd. So a herd of lions, not a pride of lions, a herd of them. Ngala, which would be just the singular, though, of the Shangaan word for lions. Puza is to drink in Zulu. And you just tack on the English thing for ing. They just tack that onto the end of a Zulu verb, puzaring. Puzaring, and bamba is the verb to kill in Zulu, not Shangaan. And it's not a noun at all. So, Shlambi of Ngala, puzaring a bamba. There is a hyena. Hello, PK. You say have most of the hyenas moved back to the Hendry Holiday Hyena Home? That is 4 alliterations. Well done, PK. I don't know. We know that one of the low-ranking females moved back here. I've seen this youngster lying away from the area before as well. There's another vehicle here, so I'm going to assume that there is a little bit of activity here. And certainly a number of the other hyenas did come by here. But whether they've taken up residence again, I don't know. I think they have. The next youngest, of course, remember, born in January. I've been away from them for so long, or they've been away from us for so long that I don't know who that is. But somebody on the Djuma Arathusa hyena group will be able to tell you which hyena that is. Bit of a limp. But limps like that will not affect a hyena. I'll get by with them. And as I say that, a Shlambi of Ndlov was just called in on the radio, everyone. That means a herd of elephant in 2 languages. Scout, do you want to know if we've seen the new ones yet? If we've seen the little babies just yet? We have, but only twice, and they're probably only now about a week old. Let me just stop here and find out what Andrew wants to do. I'll just let him stop in his very vast Land Cruiser. So I can see the mother there, Scout, but I don't see the little ones. Wafam? Oh, okay. Okay. All right, in Kum. Okay. We're going to ease our way in here. Now I'll tell you why I think she's a low-ranking female now. She's definitely not the matriarch. We know the matriarch. Her name is Madam. Oh, thank you so much for that. And it's normal that one of these sort of outlying dens will become the home of a low-ranking female when she gives birth. And then once the cubs are of a certain age, normally about sort of 6 weeks, she'll move them across to the central den. Now, I'm not convinced that this hasn't become the central den again. And Andrew was just saying there that the other hyenas, the rest of the clan, seems to be down in the drainage line just where we saw that other lot going. At least her head is up. We'll go and have a look down in the drainage there, but I wonder why they're not hanging around here. The January ones, of course, now almost 6 months old, so, and they do grow, I mean, well, I guess they grow about the same speed as a leopard, but they are born slightly more developed. And so they don't need, perhaps, the cover of the den site. I thought I saw a bit of movement there at the back. Maybe not. So there's at least one tiny little baby cub in there, only about a week old now. So let's we'll sit here for another 5 minutes or so and see if we don't have something sticking its head out there. Otherwise we'll press on and see what else we can find. But you can see around here that the little pathways leading around the den site up to it, especially around the holes, have been well used now. So it's definitely more than just this hyena that's been here, and we have seen at least 3 or 4 of the smaller ones around here. But whether the whole clan has moved back here, I'm not so sure. It's a great sighting, that, at least, Brian, of one ear.
It is great.
You know, we get so familiar with each other, everyone, that, you know, we all start to look the same. Don't we, Brian? You know what I mean, Dave?
I do, Jamie.
I do rather wish she'd call her babies out. That's it. Stick your head in. Get up. Perform. You're on TV. Come on. There. Now, a very, very warm welcome to the Grade 2 classroom at Rodin School for Young Girls in Johannesburg. Mrs. van der Merwe and Mrs. Gonzalez, welcome back again. I last saw you 2 days ago, I think. My little cousin Gracie is no doubt in the class, as is Mia, daughter of the father of all of this lot, Mr. Graham Wallington. You're most welcome. That hyena, of course, is very scared of you. It's gone running back into its den. Girls, what did you say? Why has it gone back into its den? Now, you see its movement there. You see it licking. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer, and maybe we'll be really lucky to see some little baby hyenas coming out. We have to be very patient in the wild. It's very important that when we do move, we move slowly, and you've got to do a lot of waiting. Because often, waiting is the way to find animals. Now, while we wait and see if this little hyena baby doesn't stick its head out of that hole, just remember that you can ask us any questions you like. Your teachers will send them through to us, and we'll do our very best to answer them. Often, I find young children like you ask questions that are so clever and so difficult to answer that I learn as much from a lesson like this as you do. So any questions you like, send them through. My name is James, by the way. And on camera we've got Brian. And Brian's got a special friend, don't you, Brian? What's his name?
Thumb.
There is Brian's thumb, and that's his work uniform. You see Brian's thumb? That's his safari uniform. And he's helping us find the animals out here. On the other car is my very tall friend, Brent Leo Smith. So let's head across to him and say hello. And we're just going to sit here for another sort of 5 or 10 minutes and see if the babies don't stick their heads out.